Hello everybody and welcome to the penultimate round of AOR Season 13. We're here at the Circuit of the Americas. I'm Ali Kid and joining me to take you through all the action today is Fisi.
Yes, hello. Unfortunately no Justin today as he is away, but I'm here with Ali to hopefully take you through what should be an exciting race. The championship might be wrapped up, but there are still a bunch of hungry drivers that will hopefully give us a good show.
There are indeed, and last time out it was the Flying Finn who claimed yet another comfortable victory ahead of his brother STS F1 Alonso, who's actually making a late charge for third place in the standings. But let's go and see what's going to happen today, starting off with the Qualy report.
Here we are at USA for a qualifying comparison between ESR Suprize and STS F1 Alonso. Starting the lap, opening up the DRS and coming up to a very tricky turn 1, braking at about the 100 metres board into a blind left-hand apex, lock up on the front left for Alonso there, but both drivers get around turn 1 pretty nicely. And coming up towards this very tricky S section here, through the left and then the right, downshifting using the engine braking to slow the car down here. Hooking it back over to the right hand side for this left-hander. And as we stop it there, Alonso is ever so slightly ahead of Suprize there. Suprize taking a later apex than Alonso there, which should get him a better run down towards turn 11. Tricky braking zone here, and it's very important to get a very good exit as well. Lock up on the front left for Suprize there, and again important to get this apex as this is a very long straight, longest one on the track, opening up that DRS, shifting up the gears, preparing yourself for the braking zone into turn 12. Again, another tricky braking zone, about 110 metres there. Again, another lock up there, and Alonso is once again still ahead of Suprize. Now through this low speed technical part of the track, probably the hardest part on the track to get bang on, and a wide line needs to be taken here. Again, another front lock up for Alonso there, and difficult on the exit again. And now this long triple right hander, flat out in 6th and then up to 7th gear. Again, another blind left-hander here for the penultimate corner and up towards the final corner into 2nd gear. Short shifting on the exit there for Suprize, and he's managed to gain back that time over Alonso, and he will be on pole position.
So in qualifying for the penultimate round of the season, we have got a brand new pole sitter in ESR Suprize, who takes pole position in his Sauber with an impressive time of 1:35.4 on the super soft tyres. And joining him on the front row will be Danny M7 in the Haas, who was only 1,000th of a second ahead of STS F1 Alonso, both those guys just under 2/10 of Suprize. Already crowned champion, the Flying Finn will start this race in 4th place, ahead of ESR Finch and Jason on the 3rd row. Then on row 4 we have RS Falcon and TRL Williams in the Manor and Ferrari respectively, and then in 9th place TRL Limitless, quite far down the field after taking pole last time out, and he will be starting alongside Stu, and then 6 Skills follows in P11 as a final man to set a lap time, as AOR Reversal, ESR Ryan and EVR LuckyDog all choosing not to set a time and giving themselves a free strategy choice for the race. Franglish, Orca, Martin and Kubica unfortunately not attending, but let's now turn our attention to the 14 drivers that are here ready on the grid for the United States Grand Prix.
Welcome to the grid for the American Grand Prix, and there are plenty of clouds in the Texas sky today as the drivers are ready to tackle 28 laps of this wonderful Circuit of the Americas track. It is an absolutely stunning track to drive, Fizzy, but it looks pretty threatening out there today.
Yeah, some lovely overcast going on. 60% chance of rain apparently. Wow, that could be interesting actually. Maybe we'll see some rain coming down throughout this race. So it's going to be starting on the dry tyres at least, which means of course that the top 10 qualifiers will be starting on the super soft tyres that they qualified on, whereas the 4 guys outside the top 10 can do whatever they want on the strategy. Tyre wear though isn't too heavy around there. You can see the layout there. Obviously quite high speed first sector, but after that the tyres should be in relatively decent shape. So I would say that one stop even for these guys on the super soft should be possible, but they still might have to keep their tyres in decent conditions regardless.
Oh yeah, definitely. The super soft should probably go if you stretch them, if you look after them pretty well, which I think if we get rain a little bit later on in the race, some of the guys who are good on their tyres might be able to do. You can stretch them out maybe to potentially even lap 11, 12 if you're really kind to them. It is possible to do super soft, which is a viable strategy around here in the dry. We'll have to see how the wet weather shakes up the strategy here, but everyone is lined up in their grid stop. So we're revving up to 5 red lights. We are ready to go racing at COTA. On board with Alonso. The lights are finally out and we are away, and it's a pretty decent start for Alonso. Suprize has a decent start as well. Danny's going to challenge him on the inside into turn 1. Alonso pulling to the outside, making it 3 wide. There's a Sauber in the middle of the sandwich here. Alonso's been pushed out wide. Danny's trying to take the lead. Suprize is getting very squirmy on the exit, but maintains the lead of the race. The Flying Finn has dropped down to 6th place. 7th now as he's under threat from Limitless, who hangs it around the outside. That's very close. The Flying Finn's lost another position. He is well down the order already here, so we're not even out of the first sector, as Finch is up into P3 as well, and Limitless has dived down the inside of Alonso. What an opportunistic move that is. And Limitless from P9 on the grid is up into P4 or P5 even already. What a start it's been from the Renault, as Falcon is under threat from both Renaults and the Flying Finn as well. He's going to get squeezed to the inside by Limitless, who is still side by side with the Mana and has finally managed to make his way up into P5. EVR LuckyDog is still at the back of the grid or in P12. And Jason, this is getting very, very close here with the 2 runners and a Mana and a Mercedes all going together into one corner. Jason trying to look down the inside of all of them. Falcon leaves him enough space. Limitless leaves him enough space. This is so hard to keep up with here. Everything is going on. The Flying Finn is getting squeezed on the inside. He's down to P8. What a terrible start from the guy who's already been crowned champion multiple races before the end of the season. He is on the ropes here at USA, Fisi.
Yeah, it's been the opposite start. Limitless gone from P9 to P4. Finn going from P4, he was to P8, did get the move, of course, back on Jason, going into that reverse turn 8 Turkey. I say it every time we're COTA, but it's been a fantastic start from his first pole position for ESR Suprize, leading for the whole first lap, managing to fend off Danny in 2nd place. And Finn, though, trying to work his way back through the field now. Falcon, who dropped the position to Limitless, is now going to be faced with Finn around his outside with a bit of a lock up through turn 1. Has to leave him a room on the right there, and there we go. Finn just out tractioning him down the hill and back up to P6. I will now be chasing down the gap to Limitless. You can see another gap ahead of Limitless because the battling in the midfield has really allowed the top 4 to pull away.
Yeah, the top 4 are significantly ahead of everybody else. Limitless will probably try and bridge this gap. I don't know what his pace is like. It didn't look particularly good in quali, but obviously his race pace is normally a lot better than what we've seen in qualifying a lot of times this season, as Alonso is at the back of this train, getting very close to the back of the Williams. And I do kind of feel for Suprize in this situation. It's going to be almost nigh on impossible for him to break this train because the slipstream is so incredibly strong. If he manages to break away and get out of DRS range, that will be an incredible drive from the Southman. That's a huge dive from Finch, who's going to get up into P2. And Finch's lightning start continues. He's been flying up the order. Danny has not had enough yet, though. He's trying to go back down the inside, but there's nothing doing there, and Finch is able to pull away slightly out of the corner. And this top 4 train is they're not being very kind to each other at all here, really, as Alonso goes for an almighty dive bomb, just like his namesake in real life in that corner on Felipe Massa back in 2016. Didn't quite work out for Alonso this time, and now he's trying to go around the outside of the penultimate corner. That is not a passing place whatsoever, and unsurprisingly, Alonso cannot find a way past there, as this is TRL Williams, who started inside the top 10 today, actually, trying to make his way up even further up the grid. He's up into P9 now, so a decent start from the Ferrari drivers. We're back with Alonso as he tries to make a move on Danny into turn 1. He's going for a dive again. Alonso is looking so aggressive in the early stages of this Grand Prix. We're only on to lap 3, and he's already throwing everything at Danny to try and get past, and because of that, a pretty sizable gap has opened up between the two of them and Finch as well. And all of that has just allowed Suprize to break away in the lead.
Yeah, Suprize will be loving what he's seeing in his mirrors right now. That's actually, whoa, I saw Falcon with some front wing damage there. Can't remember if you saw him get that, but that's definitely going to hurt him through those high-speed corners in Sector 1. You can just see that the Williams doesn't really have too much problem at all going around the outside there. Up into P8. Falcon, though, getting a decent bit of slipstream maybe down into the hairpin here, and he's going to actually try to get him back a little bit late on the brakes. The Williams seeing it early enough to cut underneath, and that is Stu as well, as they're trying to get in on the action with a reversal sitting right behind as well. And Stu now with a slipstream, and they might be 3 wide going down into the corner at the end of the straights. And Williams been absolutely mugged with no slipstream whatsoever down the straights too. And Falcon still side by side, just forcing Falcon off the track slightly. Falcon keeps control of the car, but drops back behind Williams. Absolutely crazy. Battling here and reversal now. Those medium tires got to squeeze up the inside as well on this kind of awkward corner, which we saw Alonso double earlier. That's kind of, oh my god, there's contact as well, and Falcon goes straight through the bar. I was going to say braking board, that's not the braking board at all. But the end board. And Ali, what even has gone on here?
Many things have gone on there, and Falcon has dropped well down the order and is currently lacking in a front wing. Not a good afternoon so far for RS Falcon yet again. The man seems to struggle more often than not, but this is on board with Limitless, who's really closed up to that top 4 train. He's bridged a fairly sizable gap that was there after lap 1, and Limitless is making some serious inroads in this race as LuckyDog is trying to make some serious inroads as well. Around the outside of turn 1 of a struggling Falcon, who's still really being hampered by that front wing damage and some tyres which are probably not feeling too great at this stage either, and he's going to lose so much time through this section. And this is probably one of the worst tracks to have front wing damage. That is a corner cut and a half. ESR Ryan is not getting away with that one. He's trying to sneak past Falcon, but there is no way through. Is he going to try a Limitless? He is. Up the inside, that's very opportunistic again. Falcon's trying a cutback. He's made it work pretty nicely. He's still on the inside, and Falcon is managing to fight somehow with this stricken car, and he's still able to compete with these guys. He's doing a very solid job at this point, but Alonso is now all over the back of Finch and is going to be easily passed by the time we even get to the braking zone. A very easy move for the McLaren driver as he makes his way up into P2, and he might even be able to smell a race victory here. He hasn't won a race in this league yet, but he's not too far off at the moment as TRL Williams is trying to go down the inside of Stu. A little bit of a lock up. He went pretty deep into the corner, but he's managed to make it work, and Williams is holding his own here, well inside the top 10. But a man who's also holding his own is ESR Suprize, who is well out in front. He's got probably a second lead over Alonso. If he can hold this together, he's got a real shot of winning this race. His pace has looked properly good in qualifying and in the race as well. His consistency is clearly pretty decent as well. If he can hold this one together, Fisi, he might just be able to nick his first victory.
Yeah, definitely. It's been interesting to see how he handles this pressure, really, because he hasn't really been in this situation before. We've seen him up towards the front in certain races, but never quite in a dominant position like this. But here is a replay of the start of the race from the lovely TV cameras, and you can see Surprise being challenged by Danny, and briefly actually even Alonso on the outside, and it's a bit of bumping behind. But no major incident from what I could see. Everyone managing to keep their car at least pointing in the right direction. How you can see it from Finn and how he dropped down a little bit. Yeah, he just slightly got into the tyre of Finch there, which made him forced him to make a save and dropped him all that momentum out of the corner. And now Jason bang in the middle of the whole pack as well. P7 through the corner, managing nicely to stay out of trouble, just about having to back out of it really there on the manor to avoid contact, and that's how Limitless, his teammate, got past him as well. And this is on lap 2 with Falcon and Finn. Finn doing a really good job there to hold it around the outside to keep hold of P6. And Falcon, I don't know if this was, this was before the front wing damage, so that's the dive up the inside for Falcon. And Finn again forced to hold it around the outside, and again looking good on the traction, it must be said. And this is a tricky one to go too wide. That was where there was a bit of contact, but still Falcon's front wing intact. But oh never mind. There he goes, just getting a bit too close to Finn, braking tiny bit too late probably into that blind corner, penultimate corner. And yeah, that is really hampering Falcon, although he might at least get a position back here.
It has really destroyed his race though. He has dropped well outside the points. These three are miles away from any points paying positions. It's not going to stop Ryan diving up the inside though, and that's not gone well at all. That was a very late opportunistic move, but 6 Skills feels the need to wait for him there, which is very sportsmanlike. I'm not sure whether it's warranted really. I probably wouldn't have done the same in that situation, but still, fair play to 6 Skills is what he thinks is necessary at this point, as the Flying Finn runs very wide on the exit of the penultimate corner. I was surprised not to see him pick up a corner cutting or track extending warning even. That's a pretty long way off the track he was there. It's not going to help him pick up a lot of time or anything really, but still, probably should have got a warning for that one. And we saw his tyres just there. 50% is quite high at this point in the race. We still don't know when the rain is going to be coming really, so these guys might have to stretch these tyres out a bit longer than they imagine. I mean, Jason is normally pretty good on his tyres. He's also in a world of his own at the moment in P7. Nobody really close in front or behind him, so he could probably just cruise and look after his tyres and try and take them to to the intermediate period, if that is at all possible. Obviously, that could be a lot later in the race than I'm imagining, but I can't imagine with 60% chance of rain that it is too far off, as the Flying Finn is now close right up to the back of TRL Limitless, and he's really not that far away from the top 4 train either, and I think the Flying Finn is going to easily be able to just breeze past the Renault here, and yeah, there's absolutely nothing Limitless can do. And the Flying Finn is up into P5 and chasing down the top 4 train. Obviously, he's already won the title, and I'm fairly sure he's already won the Constructors as well, or at least is very close to that. So there's probably not a lot else other than pride for the Flying Finn to fight for at this point. This is RS Falcon, who is, you can see on the mini-map, he's in 11th place. Stu is absolutely miles down the road, is he?
Yep, he is indeed. It's really a battle. It's a bit annoying for these guys, really, in 11th and behind, because they are not battling for any points. Might just be have to hope that something happens to the guys ahead, as actually Danny goes into the pits at the end of lap 7. So it's definitely a gamble, really, when you have, you know, the rain looming and you have no clue really when in the race is going to come. So do you go for an undercut, you know, pit and hope that everyone else will have to pit as well before the rain comes, or you try to stretch it out and lose time on those soft tires? It's always going to be a gamble. Danny's clearly chosen the former, and he will now, in this situation, be hoping that the rain takes as long as possible to arrive.
Yeah, there's no real safe option in this situation. Either one could be the right strategy, really, depending on the circumstances. This is RS Falcon, who is going to be even further behind the rest of the field, an agonisingly slow 8.5 second pit stop. And interestingly, he's gone for medium, so he thinks the rain is going to take a very long time to come then, because those tyres can comfortably go to the end. If I had had to pit, I probably would have gone for the softs, because as you mentioned, the tyre wear really isn't that bad at all, so the softs probably could have stretched to whenever the rain does come, but hey, we'll have to wait and see. As Suprize, his lead has absolutely evaporated, and STS F1 Alonso is all over the back of the Sauber now. He's well within DRS range. We've seen already in this race how easy it is to overtake on that incredibly long back straight with the DRS, with the aid of the slipstream as well. He'll just be able to breeze past probably as soon as he gets an opportunity. If he can stick close through the first sector, he should be in prime position really to take the lead of this race before long. But these guys' tyres are really going to be struggling at this point. This is the kind of make or break strategy decision that they're going to have to make. Do they pit or do they stay out? Finch has stayed out, Finn has stayed out, as has Limitless. So they're all doing the opposite for Danny, it seems, at the moment, as Jason is still staying out. He's lost a second and a half since we were last on board with him to the rest of the guys, and he seems to be going pretty slow. 41.4 is not a quick lap time at all. That would indicate to me that Jason really is trying to save his tyres and make sure he can get them to that intermediate period, as Reversal is caught up to the back of him, who was a long way back at the start of this race. Someone who's clearly not trying to save his tyres that much is TRL Limitless, who is still thrashing his car through the first sector, trying to keep on the back of this top 4 train, or top 5 train now, really. These guys are pretty close together. I'm not sure what the gap between Finch and Alonso is. I think that is where the small gap is. The top 2 are a little way ahead of the rest of these guys, but they're going to have to pit fairly shortly. I wouldn't be surprised to see one of this train come into the pits at the end of this lap. Some people won't be able to take their tyres that long, as Finch has oversteered massively in the background there. I think we're about to see a change for the lead as well, as the Flying Finn has got up into P3. Finch had a huge oversteer moment, I think. He's dropped well behind Limitless and Finn as well. Has he got a puncture?
Ooh,
he appears to be going incredibly slow. Yeah, I think he's got a right rear puncture. That is how on the limit these tyres are. Finch already has a puncture in this race.
Oh yeah, definitely a right rear. That is completely gone. He's going to navigate the whole final sector of this lap with that puncture. That's going to lose him a huge amount of time. And of course, that is the gamble. When they're getting the tires into sort of puncture territory, then it's down to luck almost. And you can just look how slow Jason is as well. This is unbelievable how slow he's going. And Reversal's gone past him on the mediums. He could be a dark horse, actually, as Alonso is going into the pits. And did Suprize stay out?
Yes.
Oh, it did. So who's... that's Alonso and Finn and Limitless all into the pits now. So Suprize staying out, that could be beneficial, although I doubt it, because, you know, there's no sign of the rain yet, really. So surely he will have to go in the next lap, and maybe actually he might be undercut by Alonso.
Yeah. Oh, what? Limitless is on inters. TRL Limitless has pitted for intermediate tyres. The track is dry, mate. What? What are you doing?
Oh no!
Oh no, it's all gone wrong again for
Oh, no.
TRL Limitless. Again, it's another strategic nightmare of a race, and again he has made the wrong. That's not even the wrong call. That's just totally out of the blue. It's just like he's picked a tyre out of a hat to go on, and it happened to be the intermediates. I have no idea what on earth has gone through his mind when he decided to go for the intermediates. Just look, these guys aren't struggling at all on their dry tyres. It's clearly the right tyre to be on, as Alonso's going for a double dive bomb on Danny, and I think that's Stu as well. They're going side by side. Danny makes the move, and Alonso is going to be lightning fast on these tyres. Suprize has got to make his mind up quickly, because Alonso is going to have an almighty undercut. He's not been held up by these guys at all, really, as Alonso gets past Danny, whose undercut has not really worked out too well at all. And the rain is starting to come down, but it's not yet heavy enough for Inters, as Danny has a cutback line, trying to go around the outside of Alonso as we enter the final sector. Alonso's managed to hold that pretty nicely, though. He has much fresher tyres, and those super softs are giving him much better grip. Finch is on intermediates as well. What are these guys thinking? I mean, we spoke about taking a gamble, but that is beyond a gamble. That, I don't really know how to describe that. Why go for intermediates at this stage? Just put on a set of dry tyres, you'll lose much less time. They're just going to burn out their tyres, and yeah, it's going to be disastrous for them in this race. So disastrous that Falcon could even be getting some points. Oh, is this the right call? The rain is coming down. Suprize has taken a huge gamble from the net lead of this race. He's gone for intermediates. We haven't seen any sign that DRS has been disabled, or we haven't seen Jeff come on the radio to any of these guys.
He's been undercutted massively as well by several cars.
It's not looking good for Suprize at this point. He's miles behind. Alonso and Danny's way behind. And these intermediates do not look like the right tyre to be on. It'd be nice to see it on board and see just how much he's struggling. He doesn't seem to be going particularly quickly. It'd be so heartbreaking for Suprize if he's made the wrong call here. He only pitted one lap after Finch and Limitless. Yeah, Limitless has dropped well down the order. He's understeering off the track at every opportunity. That is... Oh dear, oh dear,
my God.
oh dear, oh dear.
That's an interesting line, I would say. I wouldn't recommend it, but sure.
Yeah, to say the least. Oh, he's drifting as well. Oh dear, it's painful to watch these two drive around on inters on what is essentially... Look at Alonso's POV. Where is the rain? There are a few drops, yes. Yeah. This is still a dry track. I mean, we haven't seen him set any times yet. He's only a second down on his previous best lap time. You want to be, I don't know, multiple seconds down before you even consider going on to wet weather tyres. I cannot comprehend why these guys have pitted so early, to be honest. And that's Jason, who has worked this pretty well. I think he can pit for Inters within the next few laps, and he'll be in with a shout here. And this is Falcon, who's caught up to Limitless, and I think, is that Stu who's on the Inters as well? They have lost so much time. I mean, Falcon was miles behind both of them, and he's already caught them after a front wing change as well. Jason has had to pit this lap. His tyres have given up. He can't risk any longer, otherwise he's going to be getting a puncture. He's had to go for it. Finn is still out, so is Alonso, so is Danny on the dry tyres. Finn's gone for a big dive bomb, hasn't quite worked out. Danny's got a cutback, and Alonso has disappeared off down the road, and I think he is now in the net lead of this race as Danny backs out of that quite sensibly. Now this is going to be very interesting. On board with Jason as he leaves the pits. He's behind Suprize just, but are these tyres the right ones to be on? I still can't see enough standing water on the track, Fisi.
Just drizzling at the moment. You know, I can barely see any water on the track at all. Just settling down as, oh my God, that's an interesting move by LuckyDog. On Suprize, of course, is on those intermediate tires, and that just sums up the track at the moment. It is definitely not ready. And here is Ryan actually passing LuckyDog for P5 in the race, still going on the medium. This is really working out fantastically well, though, for those guys who started the race on the medium tires, because they've not had to worry at all about the tires going off like the guys who were on the super softs. Now maybe the rain is coming down a little bit more, but still Falcon deciding to stay out. You can immediately see that it's way quicker than Williams still, even though some raindrops now forming on the camera lens, as Finch has actually left the session as well. Not worked out for Finch at all, unfortunately, after that incredible start of the race that he had. But yeah, Jason at least still going, Suprize still going on the inters. I guess it would be kind of embarrassing in a way to have to go back on the dries again and then back on the inters later.
Yeah, I mean, but you could just see how much they're struggling. Falcon has pulled a worldly strategy here. He's still going on these mediums, and he's overtaking all these guys who are in the lead train at the start of the race. That just shows how slow the intermediates are at the moment compared to the dries. Falcon's on old mediums and is able to easily breeze past everyone who's just put on intermediate tyres. There's just a huge pace difference. I think we probably won't even be seeing DRS be disabled.
Race.
Yes, that is probably the best analogy to describe this situation. We probably won't be seeing DRS be disabled, I guess, for another 2 laps, I'd say. At this point, the rain still isn't coming down very heavily. You still can't see it that much on Falcon's screen. And yes, he's struggling, but nowhere near enough to put on the inters. And Alonso is still pulling away from the Flying Finn. And these two are definitely in the net P1 and 2 in this race. I can't quite see who is actually leading at the moment. But Alonso and
Reversal, probably, I would imagine.
Yes,
yeah, he was running well on the mediums.
Actually.
Yeah.
That does look like a Red Bull as well in the distance. I'm not sure whether I picked that out correctly, but I think Reversal might have pulled a really good strategy here as we're on to lap 14, and it's still not time for intermediate tyres. And oh dear, Jason has come into the pits after doing what, 3 laps on intermediate tyres. He's going back on the dries. He is going back on the dries. Oh dear, it's all gone wrong for Jason. It's all gone wrong for everybody that's pitted for intermediate tyres. I mean, we're on to lap 15 now, and it's still not wet enough to warrant going on intermediate tyres. Yet, people pitted on lap 9 for intermediates. That is the extent of the strategy mistakes we've seen so far. And Reversal is still in the lead of this race. He hasn't pitted yet, and his mediums will probably be good for, I would say, 18, 19 laps from the start because of the heavy fuel. And obviously the tyre wear you pick up from the wheel spin off the line as well. So if the rain comes within 2 or 3 laps, I mean, okay, now Alonso is struggling. He's had to downshift through that corner. Ooh. And the back end is all over the place. The Flying Finn has selected intermediate tyres. He will be slightly cautious about going on them again after what happened at Spa. But Alonso pits, and I think the Flying Finn has followed him in. Get it slowed down. That was pretty good car control as Alonso and Finn are into the pits together. It's going to be a pit crew race between Mercedes and McLaren. Who is going to come out on top? They're both going for the intermediate tyres. Finn's going to be held though for Danny, and that's going to cost him surely a 3.3 second pit stop. But is Danny going to hold Alonso as well? He is. Then is Finn going to get past both of them? Yes, he is. The Flying Finn takes what is, I think, net P2, maybe even P1, because I think Reversal has made a mistake by staying out this long. It is definitely time for intermediates now, finally. After so many laps of rain, it looks like it is just good enough for inters. And I think Reversal's going to have to pit this lap and just hope he hasn't lost that much time. But it must be gutting for Alonso to lose another, or look like he's been severely disadvantaged in another race in the pits. He cannot control anything that his pit crew does. And just like Monza, it is severely costing him.
Yeah, I got immediate flashbacks to Monza as that happened there for Alonso. Slightly less dramatic this time because he only lost 1 position, but still that could be costly enough because he was potentially in the net lead depending on what happens with the reversal now, of course. Here we got, we actually see Jason now still out on the soft tyres because that was definitely a mistake to go back. And Limit is even in 13th place on the super soft tyres. That's actually 6 Skills and Stu battling quite nicely for P11 at the moment, going down the main straight. Stu, has gone into the wall as Fake Skill also going to be slowing down into turn 1. I'm not sure what happened there. That was definitely really weird. Stu is retired from the session. Finn is struggling on the intermediates, and here comes Alonso to retake the position out of nowhere. Drama
in the braking zone, and the Flying Finn just locked up, just made a mistake. How many times have we seen that from the Flying Finn in these past 2 seasons? Not very many is the answer, and it appears he has for once cracked under pressure. And STS F1 Alonso, who has never won a race in this league, has taken the net lead of the US Grand Prix ahead of his brother, and I think these two are going to be fighting it out for the victory. It depends where Reversal comes out. He's only just entered the pits now. I don't think it's going to be that close. Reversal's definitely benefited out of his strategy, but should have pitted it on the previous lap. Yeah, and they're going to be easily past him by the time we get into turn 1. Yet Reversal's going to come out in P4, I believe. But still, from starting well outside the top 10, Reversal's got to be pretty happy with that. And finally, RS Falcon from P... Oh, he's got a... okay. He's just cut the entry to the pit lane and picked up a 3-second time penalty. I think should that mean anything come the end of the race, he may be looking to get that one removed. And finally, 17 laps into this race, DRS has finally been deactivated. The stewards have finally deemed it wet enough that DRS is too dangerous to use, which is I mean, they're the opposite of the stewards in real life, really. Had that been real life, DRS would have been disabled probably from the start. But still, finally, it's actually fully wet enough for intermediates. And Jason is taking yet another venture into the pits. I think this is the third time now in this race, which is normally a one-stop race, that he's back in the pits for another set of intermediate tyres. And after pulling what looked like a worldy strategy early on, Jason has just disappeared down the order.
Yeah, both runners have, it must be said. Both runners made exactly the same strategy mistake by the looks of it, having seen Limiters back on the dries as well. As actually there's a car coming. Who is that? Is that 6 Skills coming around the outside of turn 1, but isn't making anything of that. So Jason at least still in the points, but only 12 cars still running in this race. So yeah, it's been pretty confusing a race to say the least, especially for the drivers. Lap 15 was a magic lap. The weather gods clearly decided to make it very tricky to find that magic lap to pit on, but yeah, these guys managed to find the right one and therefore are out in the top 2 positions in the race. Falken a little bit down the order again after staying out maybe a couple of laps too long on those mediums, and defending from Williams now. He's going to try to break it later on the outside and holding it around the outside. Falken just about leaving enough room, slight bit of tyre banging. They're sliding into the braking zone, still though keeps his car ahead on the outside line into the 3rd sector of the lap, and doing a very good defensive job at the moment to keep hold of these points that he has in the bag with just 9.5 laps remaining in the race.
I'm sure Falken would be pretty happy if you'd offered him 4 points for 8th place, yeah, after being dead last by a long old way after losing his front wing early on. I'm sure he would very much have taken P8. He clearly doesn't want that P8 though, as he's driving off the track, but I think the Ferrari behind him also followed him in a slightly less dramatic way. But these two fighting over a solid 4 championship points, and yeah, as I mentioned, I'm sure RS Falken would have been very happy with 4 points given what happened to him at the start of this race. And STS F1 Alonso has driven away from the Flying Finn, the man who was crowned champion in Monza several races before the end of the season. The reigning 2-time AOR champion has been distanced by his brother. I'm sure that one might hurt. I know there's nothing to fight for really in the championship for Finn, but to be beaten by your brother, I'm sure sibling rivalry may slightly play in with those two a little bit. I would never be happy losing to my brother, put it that way, but these two still fighting over P8, and this battle could be hotting up a little bit. I mean, Williams had a decent quali, decent start to the race, and he may have been looking for a few more points than that. I think he must have got the strategy call wrong as well. I remember him being on intermediates for quite a long old time. I think he was one of the people we saw pretty early on the inters. I don't know whether he pitted again or he's just stuck it out on the same set of tyres. Maybe what Jason, for example, should have done. But Williams is trying to nab that P8 off RS Falken round the outside into this left-hander. Falken is much later on the brakes. He's managed to get it all slowed down. No lockups whatsoever. He's pushed the Ferrari off track slightly, but that's pretty solid defending from the Manor driver. And there's no way through for Williams, is there? As Falken locks up this time, slides wide in the corner, but still no way past for that Ferrari, and Falken is safe in P8 at the moment. It's worth noting that ESR Suprize is down in P7 after having a lead of almost 2 seconds right at the start of the race. Now must be pretty heartbreaking for him.
Yeah, that's all down to to the weather, obviously, and making that wrong strategy call, first of all. So we're still looking at Falken and Williams. And interestingly, of course, Falken recently pitted on lap 16. Williams has actually been on these inters since lap 11. So they're going to be quite one, and obviously some of those laps will have been while it was still kind of dry on the track. So you'd imagine that Williams might be struggling with wear at the moment, but he's still really putting the pressure on Falken and forcing him to go defensive into basically every corner. We're seeing that at the moment, still side by side once again in the 3rd sector of the lap, and Williams slightly further alongside than he was last time we were here, but still Falken managing to keep his car ahead alongside, or on the exit I should say, and through this long right-hander. They're running slightly wide, has to very much lift off mid-corner to get it turned in, and for now Falken is still safe. We are on lap 24, only 4 and a bit laps to go here. Finn still not making any inroads really though, Ali, on Alonso, who is doing a really good job, not cracking under pressure at the moment, despite his brother and already crowned champion being right there a couple of seconds back.
Yeah, and the gap doesn't look to have visibly changed very much at all. It seems to me those have pretty much held stations since the last time we were on board with them, as Williams has gone for a huge dive into turn 1 and made it work. And this battle's for P7 now, and they're still going to go side by side as we enter the S section, but Falcon manages to maintain that position, and someone must have pitted from in front because these two were miles behind everybody else. That was a bit of a corner cut from the Ferrari. I think that is that Sauber Suprize. Did he pit for another set of inters? I'm not. Yeah, that is Suprize, I think. So he's gone down. Yeah, Suprize has pitted there, and he's gone down into P9. So even more heartbreak, even more gutting for the Sauber, who, had this race stayed dry, would have been in pole position to win the race without a shadow of a doubt, with everyone pretty much on the same strategy and him clearly having pretty decent pace. But to end up at the bottom end of the points must be pretty disappointing, particularly for someone who has never had a victory in this league, to have such a good chance and then end up having it thrown back up in your face. I've been in that position before myself. It's not a good feeling at all, as this battle is still raging for P7 and Falcon. He's finally cracked. He didn't downshift into second gear, and that really cost him as he ran off the track. Big drift on the exit as a little bit extra drama, and he's down into P8. But I don't think this battle is over just yet, as AOR Reversal, we've got to give this man some credit today. He is up. He's up in P4. He's the man who was 45 seconds off the pole time at Monza. He's had a torrid season, all of season 13 really, and towards the back end of season 12 as well slightly. But today's performance has shown that all the class is still there. The guy has pulled a really top draw strategy out of the bag, and he's up in the top 4 again, which is really, really good to see. It's been a while since we've seen him in such a good position, and he fully deserves it today. The strategy call was absolutely spot on. Maybe a lap too late, but to work it the way he did is, well, pretty outstanding from the Red Bull driver. The sole Red Bull driver as well in this race is TRL Martin. Again, unable to make the start, but he's doing a pretty good job repping Red Bull on his own as AOR Reversal. Spin locks up again. He misses the apex slightly. Has to use first gear and then a big slide as well on the exit. That cannot be the fastest way around the corner. And he's still 2.5 seconds back from STS F1 Alonso, and I'm sure both of those guys will want this race win a lot, as Williams is still heading this now 3-car train, as ESR Suprize has joined the back of them, and he could get himself back up into P7, which I'm sure wouldn't mean a huge amount, but still 4 points is better than 2, or 6 points even for P7. So, well, every point counts, but I'm sure Suprize would have been looking for 25, not 6 in this race today. He could possibly make a move on the Manor here, though there's a lot of spray behind the Manor, but he's able to pretty easily, even without DRS, pull to the outside, and there's absolutely nothing Falcon can do. Is he going to go for a dive? He is slightly. Suprize is locked up. That's not gone well at all, and Falcon has passed again, but Suprize has got a really nice exit, short shifting very nicely on those fresh intermediate tyres. He's understeered off slightly into the man, a bit of contact. I'm sure Falcon won't be happy if he's picked up any more front wing damage, and yeah, Suprize lets him through, which I think is a pretty gentlemanly thing to do, and also in that situation probably the correct thing to do, but he's going to easily breeze past again around the outside of the gust of wind corner, and they're still side by side. That's so close.
Oh no!
Oh, it's all ended in disaster again for Falcon, who is backwards again, this time thankfully with no front wing damage, but that has got to hurt to be without any cars in front of you again, Fisi.
Yep, we've seen Falcon having quite a few of those moments throughout the season, it feels like. Even last week, even at Japan, he was having some similar problems going on, so I guess it at least helps that, you know, a few drivers have dropped out of the race, so it's not really any chance of dropping out of the points in this one, but you know, a driver of Falcon's caliber on a good day should be fighting for a few further points than what he is at the moment. And yeah, back to Reversal, who, as you said, is running a really good strategy. A strategy we started already from Qualy, just by making the choice to not set a lap time and you know, give himself the option to start on the mediums in the first place. And yeah, especially when you know there might be rain coming in the race, that is definitely something that could work out well, which is clearly has done. There was a few seconds though up to Danny if he wants to get a podium out of this one, so it remains to be seen if Reversal has the pace on the man who qualified in P2 on the grid for this one, and still 2 seconds or 3 seconds between the top two. I don't think Alonso is in the mood to give up this win.
No, it seems like he wants this one quite a lot. The gap has been extended by half a second pretty much. A Suprize is sitting behind the Ferrari 4. Another, oh no, the Ferrari's run off the track, and Suprize has taken the position. I completely misunderstood that, and Suprize is now back up into P7, which, yeah, as I mentioned before, he would definitely have been looking for more than that in this race, but Yeah, back to your point about Reversal not setting a time in qualifying. Again, that's a pretty intelligent decision. The drivers will get a weather forecast in qualifying if they choose to look at it, and that would have said that the rain will come towards the end of the race or towards the middle. And it's a gamble, yes, but in a position like Reversal's where he has nothing really to fight for in the championship, just go for it. And he's done that and pulled it off to perfection pretty much. As this is on board with the race leader, the man who's been looking pretty imperious so far today, STS F1 Alonso. And as we crossed the line last time round, the gap was over 3 seconds. So even if Alonso has a penalty, I think he probably has this race won, as the gap is 2.9 actually. We've seen a couple of people pick up corner cutting warnings. Alonso doesn't have a penalty, so he should be safe to win in this race then, we assume, as he's leading home his brother. I'm sure probably would have been a more special moment for them if they'd done it when they were teammates at Williams last season. I don't think they actually picked up a 1-2 when they were teammates together, but still, I'm sure Alonso will not care one bit as he rounds the penultimate corner, understeering almost off the track, but he seems to be pretty happy with this one. Round the final corner, STS F1 Alonso will come up to the line to win the American Grand Prix, his first ever AOR F1 victory. What a drive and what a celebration to match it as well. Alonso wins in at COTA, and what a drive is it?
Absolutely stunning drive for him. Perfect strategy call as well. Went to pit for the inters and fending off Finn, you know, getting back past him after being jumped in the pits and just keeping him at bay. A couple of seconds behind. That's fantastic. And shout out to Danny as well, who gets his first podium in the league as well. Danny also deserves a huge credit for his drive today. P2 in qualifying, P3 in the race. You know, you can ask for a bit more because there's 2 positions still for him to get, but certainly first podium always feels really good. So I'm sure Danny will be happy with that as Falcon finally comes home in P9. Jason's going to take the final point, and Limitless, I believe, is actually no longer in the session, even though his car is still driving around.
Yeah, not quite the race Jason would have envisaged, I'm sure, as Alonso pulled off a pretty masterful strategy, the same as his brother, the Flying Finn, to win the American Grand Prix with a 3.4 second gap between the two of them, despite Alonso's celebration over the line. And funny enough, neither of them had penalties. The first person to have a penalty was Danny in P3, who finished a pretty long way off the lead as well. And it's a good job for AOR Reversal in P4 that nobody was really behind him, because a 6-second penalty is quite a substantial amount. Ryan got a pretty decent result as well in P5, and again for LuckyDog in P6. That's pretty solid results for both of them. Both the Saubers well inside the points, and Ryan, I'm sure, will be pretty happy pulling off the same strategy as Reversal to end up so far up the grid, thanks to plenty of other people making strategy blunders, namely Jason97 F1 with a 3-stop, going super soft intermediates, soft intermediates, which is not the ideal strategy in the slightest, and funny enough, it did not work out for him. We had 10 finishes in the end from the 14-man starting grid, and pretty much everybody, I think, apart from the top 2, with a penalty in the end.
Yeah, that's that's quite interesting. Obviously, COTA a very easy one to pick up those track limit penalties, but you can see the guys who didn't finish and the guys who didn't start. I'm sure in a second we'll see also how this affects the championship, which now has the top 2 positions wrapped up, and Alonso moving quite far ahead of Jason. 20 points is what that win is going to give Alonso an advantage in the battle for P3 there. And at least both of us have wrapped up P4, or the top 4 I should say. A little bit close in the midfield actually. Falcon, Orca, Suprize, Finch, 6th to 9th, very close together. And Reversal and Danny maybe looking to have a little scrap for 10th in Brazil.
I'm actually a little bit surprised to see Reversal in the top 10 this season after some of the adventures he's had, but again, a very solid drive for him today. I'm sure we'll have rescued him a few points in the championship. And Danny as well, slightly surprising to see him down in 11th after to have seen him qualify on the front row twice this season, I believe, once at Spa and once here as well. And then Ryan actually moving down in the championship despite a solid P5 today. That might be a bit disappointing for the Sauber driver. LuckyDog also moving down in position despite finishing P6, which is pretty decent for both of those guys. And what an incredible lead it is for Mercedes in the Constructors' Championship, despite only having one driver pretty much for the last few races of the season after ESR Lee or Dizzy Cupid or ESR something, whatever you want to call him. He has been absent for the last few races. The Flying Finn has been flying the flag pretty comfortably for Mercedes, and they are Constructors' Champions by a long way ahead of Red Bull, who again have pretty much only had one representative in the last few races. Martin's been on and off a little bit with attendance. McLaren have moved ahead of Williams actually with that win from Alonso. But next up is the final race of the season, the traditional season ender, much better than Abu Dhabi in my opinion, the Brazilian Grand Prix. Fisi.
Absolutely, it's the perfect place to end the season, isn't it? It's you can't ask for anything better than Interlagos for the final race. So usually a good race. Hopefully this will be no different, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, thank you very much for joining me. Thank you very much all of you for watching, and we will see you next time for the final race of season 13. Goodbye.